Hello students, we've reached towards the fifth lecture of the module of mass communication, and in the previous lecture we had started off with the basics of journalism. Now one of the primary uh, modes of study of journalism would be the study of news, the analysis of news, what goes into the making of a newspaper, the making of a print uh, sector, and so on. So basically, this module will deal with enabling you about the various pedagogies which goes into the study of mass communication. It will again familiarize you with important topics of journalism and moreover equip you with the journalism studies in the Indian scenario. Now, in today's outline, we would deal with news and news value. That is the set of criteria or elements which goes into the making of the news value. Then we'll go into the making of a newspaper, the various production stages which goes into the making of a newspaper, the entire production process. Then we go into the print media, the magazine sector, the business of news, and the various news trends which will enable you to understand how news is being seen today, how the print sector is being gauged today. Then we'll go to the freedom of press, right to publish, and the right to privacy. Then the various press codes and ethics, as well as the various guidelines which are given by the Press Council of India to the journalists for the basic ethics which should be adhered to by the journalists while they undergo the process of production of the news. Now, when we talk about news, news is the information that is published in newspapers and which is broadcast on radio and television about recent activities in the country or world in a particular area or activity. Now, the term news implies that you collect information. Now, the information that you collect should be recent in nature and the information should be new. The information should have a significant value of importance towards the viewers and readers of your news, and that news should have an important news value. It should be unusual, recent, and moreover it should basically deal with people and factors that would affect human beings. So journalists each day structure the information received so that the public receives it sorted out, neatly packaged into stories the same day on radio, television, or online and the newspapers in the next day. So when a particular incident takes place, when it is television, through television, we would directly have the OTP events which are placed, and through that we would directly transmit the news through the aid of the digital tools of transmission. Now if it's a radio, then we assemble the news, write it into an appropriate radio script, and from then on, when we have the set time for news transmission, we would transmit the news. Then, in cases of newspapers, usually the news is collected, the news is then transferred into the different departments of editing and publishing, and once it undergoes these processes, the news is then printed and next morning the vendor delivers it to your respective homes. So basically during the process of transmission of news, a news basically goes through the process of evaluation. Now, the process of evaluation is based on the criteria which will determine the news value or the news components. The higher the value, the more the chances of that news being published with immediate effect. Now, in a newspaper, the biggest news will be given the first in the bulletin or on the page 1 of the paper in detail. The lesser news will be given in less detail later in the bulletin or an inside page, and the rubbish will be thrown away. So when we assign a reporter's job is to collect specific amounts of news. Now there are various types of reporters who will be sending you news. The reporters could be the trained reporters from the media agency. Then you have those correspondent reporters who are stationed in different parts of the city who will be giving you the fair share of local news. Then you have the citizens who act as citizen journalists, and they do give out news. Now, compiling all of the massive load of information needs a stringent process of evaluation or a stringent process of correcting the news information which has been collected. Then it goes through the process of scheming, the process of condensing the news, and the process of logically assembling the news based on the format of each industry. So the news which is going to be presented in a radio will have a different format or script of writing. The script of the television would be more different, and the news which goes printed will have its own bylines and headings, and it will give credit to the editor and sub-editor before it's published. Now all of this massive production phase which is undergone by the news information is collected, and that is then transmitted to the common public for the usage. Now all important news which are deemed to be of higher importance and have a higher news value will occupy the news bulletin or the first page of the newspaper. Then we have the lesser important news which will proceed through the later phases of transmission in cases of radio and television, or in case of newspapers the later processes or the pages, and the news which is of no use would be discarded or could be later on logically manipulatively assembled to prove a cause. Now, what is a news value? The criteria by which a news is judged forms your news value. Now, the moment you get information, you need to see if it fits the criteria of news. So, the criteria could be: is it new? Is it unusual? Is it interesting or significant? Is it about people? And these elements make up the news value of information. The stronger the elements are, the higher the news value will be. Now, what is the first factor? Is it new? Now, if it is not new, it cannot be news. The assassination of Mahatma Gandhi is unusual, interesting, significant, and about people, but it cannot possibly be reported in tomorrow's papers because it's new. We do have certain sections in the newspapers where it is written this day in the history. Now that necessarily doesn't imply that you are looking into the old news. That is just a diversion which people do in order to keep you abreast with the happenings which happened certain centuries ago. Now, the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi is of national importance, preferably because of the fact that he is known as the father of the nation. But his assassination is something which we have known since we have been born and bred as Indian citizens. Now, even though it is interesting to know how the Mahatma or the people's person died or the father of the nation died, but that is an old news. Now, if in case you get newses on the assassination which are new, only then it would come up to the news. So, if some facts about that assassination became known for the first time, however, that would be news. The assassination would not be news, but the information would be. So, assassination of Gandhiji is an old news by now. Now, that assassination of Gandhiji cannot be considered to be news as of now. But any newer information which would highlight the assassination would now be considered as news. So events which happened days or even weeks earlier can still be news as long as they have not been reported before. For example, if you are telling a story for the first time and it's new to your readers or listeners, therefore it can be called news. So, news has to have that element of novelty, the element of newness. Now, if the news is old, in order to be a news again, it should have an additional amount of information. So if you are telling the story once again for the first time with your added bits of extra information, only then would it make to the news. Now, for example, the news of the release of Sridevi's dead body, for instance, was not released to the world by the Dubai government for several hours. But when they did release it, however, it still definitely was news. Now, the death of Sridevi was raging in the papers since February 24th. So that was not news again from February 25th onwards. But from February 25th onwards, the extra information of the body being released, the body being sent for autopsy, the body being sent for embalming, the body being sent to be carried by the charter plane in India, the body being sent to their home, the body being sent to the crematorium site, the body receiving a gun salute, all those became news later on. Now, is it unusual? Now, the news also needs to have a quirky element within itself. Now, things are happening all the time, but not all of them make up to be news. And even when they are new, it is not news. For example, a man wakes up, eats breakfast, goes to work on a bus, and it has only happened, but nobody wants to read about it because it's not unusual. Ordinary and everyday things do not make news. Okay? So, the day-to-day activities of a commuter who takes the Mumbai local, for example, how he begins the day, say from Andheri, he has to reach to the end of the Mumbai city. Now, how he gets up early and does his day-to-day chores and makes it on time to the station, makes his way through the crowd, and then he makes it to his workplace is not news. It's regular, it's not unusual. Many people actively partake the process and so on. So that's not news. Ordinary and everyday things don't make news. But if it is a 90-year-old man who does it, who is still catching the bus or the local, who goes to work daily, and because the traditional retiring age in India is 60 to 65 years. So if a 90-year-old does that on a regular basis, he'll soon become noticed, and that could be news for the other people. So the classic definition of news is this: dog bites man, it is not news. Man bites dog, it is news. So this definition, even though it's not a universal definition, if the dog is eaten in your society, probably it won't be news. For example, in the northeastern part of India, in Nagaland, dog meat is eaten. So that is not news. You have markets where people openly sell dog meat. Now, if that is done in the western part of India or in the southern part of India where people are oblivious of this culture, it's news. It would be termed as animal cruelty. PETA would be right there to frame charges against you. So the thing is, a news could be news to some society, a news could not be news to the other society as well. So what is usual in one society may be unusual in another. Again, we expect the content of the news to vary from society to society. So in every society, the whatever is unusual is likely to be news. So the factor of weirdness, the factor of quirkiness is very important because it is that factor which will lead you to establish it as news. So that would increase your news value. The next thing is it interesting? Events which are new and unusual may still not be of general interest. So scientists may report that an insect has just been found living on a planet which it did not previously inhabit. So the discovery is new and the event is unusual, but it is unlikely to interest anybody other than the specialist or enthusiast. So we find that technology is expanding day to day. So if I don't take the example of the insect, let me take the example of a drone which has been created. Now drones are used left and right by people because it has of late been a trend to create drone and explore and click photos by the drone. Now, a factor of interesting thing would be here is that people are already aware of how a drone functions. People are aware of the fact that a drone is used to click photographs, transmit images, give you an aerial view. Now recently, a student called Sampriti Bhattacharjee, she is a PhD scholar from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and she has made a hydro drone. Now, what this drone goes is, it goes underwater and this drone will click and record images within a distance of 100 kilometers from where that drone is operated. Now, she's applied for a patent because it is something which is very coveted by the people of the Gulf where refinery is a big industry. So people usually use sharks to smell up certain smells and from there they locate where they can set up their oil rigging or drilling process. Now this drone, what it would do, it would identify segments for you within a radius of 100 kilometers. So it's new, it's phenomenal, it adds on to what is already known. So it is interesting for enthusiasts. Now how does it help someone sitting here in Mumbai who has nothing to do with the refinery? So for us, it is just a news. We might just applaud, but it's of no use to us. So then again, the news which is selective is likely to interest someone is big for some and the news value is higher, while the same news could have a lower news value for people with different inclinations. So in a specialist publication, this could be a big news, but in a general news broadcast or paper, it would merit at most a few words. So how interesting your words are is also an important factor. Now, is it significant? A peasant farmer says that the Roman Catholic Church should ordain women priests, and that is not news. If an archbishop says it, it is news because what he says on the subject is significant. It is the views of people such as the archbishop which helps to form the policy of the church. Now, the archbishop is considered to be one of the topmost leaders of the church, who is the most detrimental person in making the policy decisions. Now, this archbishop, if he says that from today women can be ordained as priests in the church, it would have many folds of opinions and critiques because it is a policy which can be readily implemented by the archbishop. But if the same thing is done by the, say for example, the peasant, then it might not hold the same value. But however, say the peasant has learned to say grow a new crop in a place where the crop is not unheard or not cultivated of much, then probably the peasant would also be given a huge deal of significance. Like for example, yesterday in the newspapers it was being flashed that Gauri Deka, a farmer from the northeastern part of the country, has been growing strawberries. Now strawberries are a common plant which is harvested in parts of Mahabaleshwar and the colder climes of Maharashtra, but it's not that grown or known of in places like the northeastern part of India. So growing of that strawberry, bringing in that cultivation process holds manifold importance to the people of the northeastern belt. So which is why, unlike the regular strawberry peasant, this peasant is on the front pages. So once again, what is interesting or significant in one society may not be interesting or significant in another society. So the content of the news may be different. Therefore, in different societies, by the way it is identified, it is also the same. Now, let's take the recent case of the singer Papan. Now, Angarak Papan Mahanta has been totally rejected by the members of the Z group or the SL group which monitors a particular child show. Now what happened was, based on the incident, the person who was a judge in that reality show, he apparently, as the mainstream media promotes, is he apparently placed a peck on the girl's lips. Now, in the northern and the western and the southern part of the Indian continent, this is considered to be a formidable act, almost culpable and amounting to child infringement of the child's rights. So he's been booked under POSCO. But in the northeastern part of India, this could be a way in which the adulation is shown, or people might not be educated enough to know which is a good touch or a wrong touch. So for them it is like making a big deal out of the issue and maligning the girl as well as the singer's career. So people have different views. So what is considered to be a news of the infringement of a child's right, a sexual harassment towards a child, may just be a incident or a gesture of affection towards the child. So there are various conflicting views, and at the end what happens is the discourse is created, and this discourses will have a news value which will get eventually published as a mainstream news. Now, we have to also see if it's about people. Now, most news is automatically about people because it's the things people do to change which makes the news. The hydro drone example which I have given you. Now, that drone has been used to make manifold changes in the process by which drones are being constructed and perceived. So this is not just the regular aerial drone, but this is an underwater drone. So it is of people's interest because with that they can navigate the ocean floors, drill more, and get a better understanding of the ocean demographics and so on. So it's news to the people, right? So a news can also be, however, made of non-human sources, such as a cyclone, a bushfire, a drought, a volcanic eruption, or an earthquake. It is when reporting these stories that it is important to make sure that the story is centered on the people. Now, for example, you are reporting a story that a cyclone is about to occur. I remember my friends from Orissa used to say that every year during the monsoon season they would be warned of cyclones and they wish dearly that the cyclones would be held in front of their maths examination, because then what happens, they need to stay indoors, the school is shut, precautionary drilling measures are taken care of. So that makes up to the news because there has been devastation. Then you have seen how the tsunami had created massive effects of derangement in the human society. So everything which is connected with humans would make up to the news. A bushfire. You know how a small spark can light up almost the entire dry forest. Now that's very common in uh, this place, California. Then drought. You see farmers are struggling, there is no harvest, there is no production of basic fodder pulses, it directly affects the economy. So that is brought to concern. These are non-human calamities which have a direct impact on the human life. Then a volcanic eruption, the hot lava. It's a different thing if a lava from the mountain is collected and taken into the geographical lab for study. But an actual lava erupting, causing burn injuries, causing damage to the settlement in and around, causing landslides and all is not cool. Then earthquake. Earthquake again, we've seen how earthquake can have a damaging aspect like the Gujarat earthquake, the Nepal earthquake, where trees get uprooted, people get buried inside the house, the tins flying up, and then there is basic damage to human life, property, and so on. So it is when reporting the stories, it is important to ensure that these stories are centered on people. Now, the cyclone would not have mattered if it blew itself out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean away from any inhabited islands. The fire could burn as long as it lies in the bush where nobody lives. The Sahara Desert has a near permanent drought, but it is of no use reporting it because nobody expects vegetation over there. Then a volcanic eruption or an earthquake which damages no one's property would be of no use reporting because no one really cares and it does not affect people. Then all these natural disasters only becomes news when they affect people's life. So every story that you present should be told in terms of people. So whenever you start with a story, you have to begin by saying, how does this affect my readers, my listeners, or viewers? So whenever you have a story which tells you of something that has happened which affects both people and property, you should make sure that you put people first. Now, we come to the making of a daily newspaper. So, whenever we get a newspaper, the reason why the production of a newspaper takes time is because it has to grow through all of these stages. So in a radio, it does not need to go through all of these stages because it requires just the formation of the information into a logically disseminatable position. So you just arrange the facts logically so that the news reader could read it out. So this is the case in a television. But in a newspaper, basically you have the different departments which works together. So first we have the newsroom, then the features, the editorial department, the advertising manager departments, then managing the editors conference, then you have makeup editor, copy readers, composing room, engraving room, stereotype room, press room, and lastly the circulation department. So all of these would go into the making of your newspaper. So first, when it comes to the news, you have your local news. Now you would get the local news from the police department, the city hall, the courts, the schools, the politics, the general assignments, and so on. Then for the other national news, you have the national news editor, and for foreign news, you have the foreign news editor, and for the city news, you have the city editor, where it would consist of your reporters, your correspondents, your rewrite man, and your photographers. So similarly, in the national news editor department, you have your teletype, your wire photo correspondents, your rewrite men. Then in the foreign news editor departments, you have the editor, the teletype, the cable, the correspondent, and the rewrite man. Now in features, you have both the editors as well as the critics. So the features would deal with the different departments or the different genres or attributes by which you would go on with your feature story. So it would consist of finance, business, sports, society, fashion, magazine, theatre, books, women's pages, and so on. Then you have certain syndicates which will supply you with the news information in an illustrated manner. For this, you have your cartoons, your comics, and your columnists. Now, editorials would primarily compose of your chief editorial, the writer, then the assistant editorial team, and the other writers. Advertising consists of your managers, the salesman, the layout man, the office staff, and so on. Then you have the retail display of your advertisements, the stores, the markets, the classified, the wanted, the classified displays, the movies, the theaters, and amusement, basically the leisure package. Now, in managing editors conference, the front page stories are managed, and usually it's done by the makeup editor. Now, the makeup editor is again assisted by the copy reader. The copy reader has functions in the composing room, where the copy reader would do copy cutting, linotype casting, assembling takes, casting headlines, then galley proofs, proofreading, page makeup, etc. Then it would go to the stereotype room. Now, in the stereotype room, if there's also a photo engraving to be done, that would be done in your the engraving room itself. Now, the stereotype room will have your matrix, the rolling, the reinforcing, the forming, roasting, and casting. Then the cast itself will have the trimming, the beveling, and cooling process. Then of course you have work in the press room, where you adjust with the press, you position the papers, you lock on the cast. Then the press has a certain work of inking, printing, cutting, folding and counting the newspapers which has been printed. Now once the newspapers has been printed, it goes to the circulation department where the newspapers are carried by the various carriers to the newsstands, the post office, the retail malls, the roadside shops and so on. So basically this is the production stage of your daily newspaper. Now let's go into detail how the newspaper is produced. Now in order to produce a newspaper, the newspaper has to go through the following stages. So whether it's a daily newspaper, a weekly newspaper or a monthly newspaper, the first stage of production is news gathering. Now news gathering simply implies the process by which you collect the news. Now in order to collect the news, you'll have the various reporters, the sub-editors who would look after the reporting process, the byline writers and so on. Now news gathering can take place in a plenty of forms. So this includes interviewing, reporting and writing, taking photos, gathering press releases and compiling letters to your editor. So interviewing, for example, the election is going on. Now you have station interviewers outside the parliament to take the reactions of the politicians. You report and write those reactions. You take photos, right? So if there's an accident here, the reporter would go take photos of the crime site and send it to the publication house. You gather press releases. So your PR personnel say now Karti Chidambaram has been arrested by the CBI regarding the money laundering cases. Now his PR persons would see when they can arrange for a session with the media where it can be discussed in detail. So you have to gather press releases from the PR personnel. Make sure you have people to attend and gather the information so that you can publish it. Then compiling letters to the editor. Now you see every section will have letters to the editor where they also need responses by the editor. So it is important to see that all of those get done on time. Now every inclusion in the newspaper is gathered during this time, so which may last a day or several days depending on the production schedule of the newspaper. So the newspaper is generally gathered by a combination of reporters, photographers, editors and interns. So everything which is included in the newspaper is gathered during the daytime and it may last a day or several days depending on the production schedule of each newspaper. Now all the collected items are gathered. The news items are gathered by combination of reporters, photographers, editors and interns, and all of these would go into the final process which we have discussed in the previous slide, that it would go to the editorial, the makeup editors would read through your scripts, the copy readers would read through your proofs, then it goes to the press room and finally to the circulation department. Now to make money, every newspaper will have a advertising section. So you know that the cost of a newspaper today is max to max 7 rupees. Now that is not even sufficient to get a considerable amount of revenue, pay the people, because you need a huge amount of workforce to publish a newspaper. So to make money, the newspaper will be relied on the advertising revenue. Now, because some newspapers are free and others cost a nominal fee, significant revenue is derived from the advertisers. So a small page nowadays, if you have to give a classified, it itself costs you somewhere between 25,000 to 50,000, and the full page obituary or advertisements that you see, they themselves come up to a cost of 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs per uh, per portion of the newspaper that the client is using. So every newspaper has an advertising staff responsible for selling advertising space to business houses. So some ads may be local while others may be statewide or national. Now ads are sold in a variety of sizes and shapes and placed throughout the newspapers. So ads are very important, primarily apart from being a source of revenue for the newspaper agency. Ads are usually liked by all people, because if someone wants to promote their product, they will be relying on the ads in the newspapers. Or if someone wants to know about certain products, their first choice would be to open the classified section and see whether they have their desired information or not. Now, the newspaper then goes into the composition stage. Now, a newspaper's composition stage is the process by which the editorial content and advertisements are placed, edited and finalized. So, in the composition stage, the process by which the editorial content and advertisements are placed in the paper, edited and finalized is seen. So in small companies, the editorial or advertising staff may do their work, but in case of larger publications, a composing team is responsible for this stage. Now the pages are typically designed with programs such as Adobe InDesign or Quark Express, and then the content is proofread by editors and the advertisements are verified by an advertisement manager. Now, if the advertisement is done by an organization, then of course you can rely on the creative team to creatively put the materials which are needed to advertise the product. But if it is not done by a creative agency, then each newspaper will have its own advertising staff who would create the advertisements for you. So typically they use the programs such as Adobe InDesign or Quark Express, and then the content is proofread by editors and the advertisements are verified by an advertising manager. Now, let's come to the production process of the newspaper, which looks after the final step of printing and distribution. Now, printing and distribution will form an important stage in the newspaper printing process. So while the news has been composed and proofread, it is sent electronically to a printing shop. So in any paper publication house, the entire material which is being collected, which is being edited, which is going into the process of gathering and composition, will now go, after being also passed through the advertisement department, will now go into the printing department. Now when the newspaper has been composed and proofread, it is sent to the place where it can be electronically printed. Now for many newspapers, the printing facilities are in the same building as the newspaper's advertising and editorial staff. Why? Because the advertisements can also be added and deleted in the last moment so that it fits the content. So for example, if the paper's layout has been set out and it's about to be put to bed or put for printing, that's the term journalists use when the newspaper is going to be printed. So now if emerging breaking news comes, now the entire location of the news, the format of the news has to be altered. Now if a certain news is occupying page 1, now from page 1 it might get shifted towards page 2. So a complete rearrangement needs to be done. So this is the reason why you need your editorial staff at hand. Now this editorial staff will do the work of editing the news, changing the news format time and again till the newspaper goes on towards a deadline. So the news, the printing facility of the news should be such that it should be next to the editorial staff. Then the images of the newspapers are loaded on the press and the copies are printed, folded, stacked and bundled. Now the news which gets printed, the copies which has got printed, all of these needs to be neatly folded, needs to be neatly stacked and then bundled to different distribution sites. Now from there they are picked or sent out by the delivery people who take the newspapers door to door, fill boxes around the community and drop them off the stores. So from going through the entire process of rearranging it to the last moment, once the newspaper is printed, it is carefully folded, stacked and sent for distribution. Now the distribution is done by the circulation people early in the morning who would see that the newspaper has been sent door to door, fill the boxes and dropped off at stores. Now previously the Times of India, which used to be published from Delhi and later on in Kolkata, did not have a office in Guwahati. So I am from Guwahati, so there we used to receive the edition of Delhi Times. Now the Delhi Times edition which we would received were from the previous day and that used to reach Guwahati the next day by evening 9 o'clock. Now that was worked upon and then after a period of few years we started getting the Kolkata edition of the Times of India. That again used to come. It used to be the same day edition, but instead of arriving early in the morning, we used to get it late evening. Again at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, the Kolkata edition of Times of India used to reach us. Now when Times of India opened a center in Guwahati, only then we began to receive the Times of India copy early in the morning. So you see that right from the process of collection of news to the process of circulation, the newspaper itself goes through the immense process of gathering the news, composing the news, production of the news at different phases, the editorial team always being there in cases of emergencies, then the printing team which has to be on the toes to meet the circulation needs on time, and then the circulation department which has the job of sending the items on time. So basically all of these goes into the newspaper production process. Now we come to the next center, that is of print media. Now in all of these we have basically learned about news, the news value, the making of the newspaper, the production of the news. Now we move from news to the print media sector. Now in the print media sector, we will be learning about the uh, process of how the print media sector functions. So, the magazine is nothing but the publication with a paper cover which is issued regularly, usually every week or month, and which contains articles, stories, photographs, and advertisements. So the magazine is also a form of publication, but the magazine is not published daily like the newspaper, but of course it is published regularly at a frequency. The frequency could usually be every week, every month, and it contains articles, it contains stories, it contains photographs, it contains advertisements. Now, in 1663, the German theologian and poet Johann Ries created a periodical called Herbalische Monads. Now, Herbalische Monads was also known as the Unterredungen, which meant edifying monthly discussions. Now, the poets created this periodical. It used to be published at a periodical basis, and this came to be known as the earliest examples of a modern magazine, the Gazette, and it lasted for a period of 5 years, and it spanned a myriad variety of similar journals across England, Italy, and France. So the magazine, which is usually a publication with a paper cover and which is published on a fortnightly basis, every week, bi-monthly basis, will contain all your articles and stories and photographs and advertisements. So the magazine was first published in 1663, and it was named Edifying Monthly Discussions, and from there on the trend started eventually in France, in England, and in Italy. Now, how does a magazine uh, constitute its several parts? So in each magazine there are a number of items and articles. So they can be long, they can be short, but the main aim is to engage the readers and entertain the readers. So in a magazine there are several parts. So in this we will be discussing about the various parts of a magazine. So firstly, the magazine has your cover page. Now the cover page of your magazine is so that in some ways it is the most important part. Now the cover page of a magazine is any day important because it will attract the readers, create your readership circle, and the cover page would also make the viewers know what kind of content the magazine is dealing with. So most magazines uses an image relating to a long feature within the magazine. So if it's a fashion magazine like your Verve or the Vogue, so it will have a cover picture every month. So in the first month, if it is showing you a photo on Kareena Kapoor Khan, you know that this issue has her features her as a prime story. Now other than that, you would have the regular features of your magazine. So if it's a travel magazine like the ones produced by Condé Nast, you would see from the picture, you can know that, okay, if they are, say, showing the Leaning Tower of Pisa, so something about the Italian culture would be dealt in detail with that magazine. So if it's showing the Vatican, you know it has got something to do with Christianity, the Pope, and so on. So the cover of your magazine is very important, and most magazines uses an image that is relating to a long feature within the magazine itself. Then the magazine will have its table of contents. Now, table of contents is essential to give you the idea of what is being constituted inside the magazine. So, in the table of contents, after many pages of advertisements, the table of contents serves as a quick breakdown of how the magazine is organized. So it is especially helpful when a reader is intrigued by the cover and wants to read more and to flip to the contents and easily find the article they were looking for. So in the table of contents, uh, it serves as a quick guide about what your magazine is going to address. So it is especially helpful when a reader is intrigued by the cover and the reader wants to read more, to flip to the contents and easily find the articles they were looking for. So the table of contents is generally 1 to 2 spreads. So take a typical magazine such as Femina. Now, this magazine will typically begin off with the cover page of a particular actor or the actress or the destination or the issue which they want to focus. Then you begin with the table of contents. Now in a women's magazine like Femina, you have everything relating to makeup, to beauty, to food, to travel destinations, to horoscopes, to book reviews of the month, to movie reviews of the month, the editorial, and your primal feature story. Apart from it, you have 1 or 2 short feature stories. Now, if someone is in a hurry and someone needs to know about new launch of say gadgets which has been launched that month, so if the content is there, it is very easy for the person to open up that page and go through the content, have a glimpse at which page number the desired content has been put, and from there the person carries on. So it is very helpful when the reader is intrigued by the cover and he wants to read more, to flip the contents and he easily finds the article that he is looking for. So the table of content is generally 1 or 2 spreads. Now, you will also have contributors, the writer biography pages. So generally one spread, this page tells you your audience about the writers. So the writer's biography is important in any newspaper publication because you need to see that you are giving the due respect to the writers who are contributing towards your magazine. You let your audience become acquainted with the kind of people you hire for your magazine. Moreover, it is also essential because you are allowing your readers to know about the content your writer is providing. So, for example, if today in your magazine, say, uh, Javed Habib has a article, so you know it's something from the hair and beauty industry. So if you have, say, a write-up incorporated by a Indian writer, say, um, Rujita Devakar, you know she is going to talk about nutrition. So you need establish that Rujita Divekar is a well-known nutritionist. So you have that feature. So if you are going to have a write-up on, say, horoscope, so you know Marjorie Lee or Bejan Darwala deals with the horoscope aspect. So you introduce them, who they are. So it is very essential to have a good writer bibliography, and usually it's about one page, and that page will tell your audience about the writers. Now, it could include long entries about the writer's backgrounds or short thematical entries that can only relate to content specific of the magazine. So if it is a regular feature, for example, Shobha Day or say Twinkle Khanna writes features like Mrs. Funnybones for Times of India. Now, if it's producing a magazine, you have to give the detail of Twinkle Khanna, who was previously an actress and who balances her time being an interior designer to a writer, and these are her common books which has been published, so you need to give it, or you give short thematical entries. So if you are doing a feature on, say, this edition, it's Women's Week is coming up on the 8th of March. So if it's Women's Week and you are drawing a collective story about the various women writers, uh, so how their writings are capturing the entire theme of Women's Week, or if you are organizing say write up on the breast cancer awareness, so you have survivors of breast cancer, so you need to give short thematical entries amongst those people. So you identify that okay, these people are from this NGO who are aiding people suffering from breast cancer. So you take themes and you write, you acknowledge the theme for the contribution that these people are making towards your papers. Now, after that, you give this page the credit to the writers. Now, letters from editor. Now, this letter is in most magazines as the message from the editor about the specific issue. So, it is generally one page and includes an image relating to the message or of the editor. So, there was one point of time when Tanya Chaitanya used to be the editor of Femina. Now you would have a photo of Tanya Chaitanya over there, and thematically she would write something as a short 500 word write up about the issue which was hitting the stands. So letters of editor is nothing but the message that the editor puts out about that specific issue, and it's generally one page and includes an image relating to the message of the editor. Then you have feature stories. Now, feature stories are long reads. They are generally 1 to 2 pages. Now, each feature story, the writer has researched and interviewed to tell a factual story about a person, place, event, issue, or a idea. So, you have feature stories where, say, you have to write an article on the problems of the children whose mothers are paid sexual workers. Now you go to the red light zones, you interview those children, you write about the sense of pride, the sense of shame the children have, whether they are getting basic medical facilities, facilities to attend school, facilities to mingle with the normal children, and so on. So after that interview is there, and there was recently a documentary where those children were packed all together, they were injected with the proper medical vaccinations, they were taught the basic hours of English, and then they were packed into the states where they were given a good life. So these people are educated, they are coming back, and the process is being continued. So these things require research. These things require your field research, and post that the research has to be thoroughly organized in a logical manner. So it has to be substantiated with authentic facts. Now, to get this authentic facts, the people should be in turn uh, constantly be in touch with the persons who are coordinating it. So all of these have to come, and only then it could be used into your feature story, and that could be 1 to 2 spreads. Now features are not opinion driven and are quote and detail oriented. So it's not about how you deal with the issue of children whose parents are paid social workers. It's about not about your opinion on how the child undergoes the massive psychological orientation. It's more about the ground reality of the issue of whether the child is given the basic literacy right, the issue whether the child is taken care of, the issue of innocence, whether the child is protected amid such a sexually expletive area. So you need facts to ascertain how these children are being reoriented, how they are being given the basic privileges, and how after acquiring the basic privileges, the children are able to make use of those privileges and they use it when they are sent to the foreign countries, and how they come back after acquiring, after inculcating the values, and how do they assimilate back to the society from where they were picked up. So it needs to be well researched, it cannot be opinionated, it needs to have ground factual photographic evidences as well. So the actual body copy of a feature generally begins on page 2 of the layout due to the artistic designs of most feature spreads. So it does not start off right away. You have your table of contents, you have your letters from the editor, and then you begin your feature story. Now, once you begin your feature story, it cannot be a regular women's magazine like Femina, cannot be of a serious form. So you have alternative story forms. Now think of alternative story forms as an infographic. Now you have lots of icons, graphs, charts, pictures, and chunky text, and long writing forms. So you have infographics where, say, you are going to welcome uh, summer now. So you have an umbrella, you have a watermelon, you have your sunscreen, you have your chash or your buttermilk, and you have your kokum sherbets and all. So infographic, and that itself will signal you that okay, this issue is dealing with the summer season. So if it's winter, similarly it will have cozy cups of coffee, books, fireplaces. It will have gifts because Christmas might be approaching. So this infographics will tell you alternate story forms. So if it's a Christmas issue, so it will have alternate stories like how children celebrate Christmas in the different parts of the continent. What are the different traditions which are being observed? What is the food tradition? How it is alternatively celebrated in the warmer climes, and so on. So you'll have alternate story forms in the form of your infographics, and this will not be long writings. Then advertisements are very important. Ads are a major part and revenue source of any magazines. So, if a magazine like, say, uh, Fiamma is launching a product, so you will have a sachet of Fiamma shower gel which will be given to you. So, advertisements form a very important and regular part of your revenue. Then, advertisements will also be covered not only in one page but some can take up a whole spread. So usually in magazines like Femina, what they do is they have their normal advertisement, sometimes one whole page an advertisement will take, and after that you have a bibliography of advertisement. Now that index of advertisement will be your store locator index. So if say you have a brand of, say, Zara or Dolce and Gabbana or Dior or Jimmy Choo or anything else, you will have the index alphabetically arranged, say A for Aldo and B for, say, Blackberry and so on, and C for, say, Chanel, and those will be alphabetically arranged. The store locators will be given. So, advertisements which form a integral part of a magazine's revenue is arranged in a manner in which the product also gets emphasis, the promoters are also happy, and so are the clients via the advertisement index. Now we'll go to the timeline of the origin of the magazines. Now in 1663, the German theologian, he basically was a person who did the study of religion and philosophy, and he was also a poet. So his name was Johann Rist, and he created the periodical name Herbalische Monat Unterredaktion. So it implies edifying monthly discussions. Now in 1672, the first periodical of amusement was published. So Le Mercure Galant, later called Mercure de France, was created by French writer and playwright Jean Donnou de Vichy. So Jean Donnou de Vichy in 1672 created the first periodical of amusement, and it was published by Le Mercure Galant. Then the 1700s ushered in a time of increased literacy and intellectual prowess, especially among the women. So women were now getting more and more qualified and they became writing. So they used to write during this period using different pen names. Now, English printers produced three periodicals that set the stage for modern magazines. So you had Daniel Defoe's The Review, which was published in 1704 to 1730. Then Sir Richard Steele's The Tatler, which was published between 1709 to 1711, and Sir Joseph Addison and Steele's The Spectator, which was published between 1711 and 12. So this was the time period when the publication came into forefront. So it started off in 1663 with Edifying Monthly Discourses. In 1672, it started off with Mercure de France by Jean Donnou de Vichy. 1700s was an era which saw many women writers, and most importantly, it was a time period where three important publications by Defoe, Tatler and Steele were published. So it was the Review, the Tatler and the Spectator. Then in 1731, an Englishman named Edward Cave published a periodical called the Gentleman's Magazine. Now the word Gentleman's Magazine was crucial because it is attributed that Edward Cave invented the word magazine from the Arabic word makhazin, which meant a storehouse. So, makhazin in Arabic means a storehouse. The magazine was attributed to Edward Cave using the term, and it was a storehouse of all information. It was called so because the magazine acted as a storehouse of amusement, a storehouse to quench the curiosity, a storehouse of leisurely things, important topics, and day-to-day things which led to the readers being engrossed. Now, his publication contained uh, things which the general public would be interested in. So it was not like a journal which contained only scientific information. It was not like that. It was a publication, which is why the name Makhazin or magazine suggests that it contains everything from essays and poems to stories and political music. Now, Cave achieved two noteworthy accomplishments. He coined the term magazine, and he was the first publisher to successfully fashion a wide-ranging publication. In 1842, the British news agent Herbert Ingram created the first illustrated magazine. So, after realizing that colorful sketches and illustrations contributed to magazine sales, Ingram began publishing the Illustrated London News. So till then, the magazine was just a collection of normal poetry, essays, and publications. So only after Herbert Ingram in 1842 began drawing, sketching, and publishing the first illustrated magazine, they saw a dramatic rise in the total sales. So after realizing that, Ingram began publishing the Illustrated London News. Now, the weekly news and arts periodical was filled with dozens of woodcut designs. So, woodcut designs were prominently filled, and it garnered the common public's attention. Now, the Illustrated London News also earned the first distinction of being the first magazine to incorporate photos. Now, after this period, you had the growth of the American magazine industry, and so on. The trends followed in Cambodia and Vietnam, Chile, and so on, until it reached the Indian subcontinent as well. Now, today in the Indian subcontinent, you have magazines published in the English language. It has magazines published in all the 26 regional languages. So, today let's see what are the common magazines which are being published in just the English language in India. So, we have Business India. It is a bi-monthly magazine which brings you news of the various business sectors in India. You have Business Today. It's a fortnightly issue. So in that issue, again you get a glimpse of the business sector. Then Champak is something you all have grown up reading. It's your basic children's magazine. Now, Caravan is a very important magazine because it is instrumental in publishing day-to-day political and cultural opinions. So, it's published by the Delhi Press, and the Caravan itself is known to publish issues on critical political issues, but primarily they accuse it of having a leftist stance. Then you have the CTO Forum, which is a monthly magazine. Then you have CFO India, again a monthly magazine. Then you have Data Quest, which is a fortnightly information and technology magazine. Now, after that, you have Digit. Now, Digit as the name suggests, consists of your reviews of the latest IT gadgets and the mobile phones which are being launched in the market. So the people, every time a new mobile phone or a gadget is launched, you'll have people from the digit reviewing the products for you. Now it's very essential given the fact that there is a huge amount of products being created for you and you specifically do not know which products to choose from. So digit is essential. Then you have electronics for you. Again, it helps you with the gadgets which are being launched in India and worldwide, and it's a technology monthly magazine. Express Computer again is the monthly information technology magazine. Then you have Femina, which is a woman's magazine. Then you have Forbes India, it's again a business magazine, and it's very prestigious to come into your Forbes list because if you are making it to the Forbes list, then you're doing something really great. Because the Forbes list is considered to be the prestigious list of the highest achievers in the industry. Then you have uh, Frontline. Now, Frontline, along with Competitive Success Reviews and all, are current affairs magazines. So, if someone is uh, studying for the civil services, it is essential for them because it gives you the complete package of your current affairs. Then you have Himal South Asian. So it's again a magazine which deals with the demographics and the typography and the various cultural assimilations of the South Asian and Himalayan region. India Today is also political in nature with few pages being given to your horoscopes and a few pages given to your movie ratings. Then you have FHM India, it's a monthly magazine. Then we have Industry 2.0, which is a manufacturing magazine which has technology updates and news monthly updates. Then you have Intelligent Computing Chip magazine. Then you have New Women Organizer. It is a weekly magazine. It has news, politics, science, sports, and history. It's a complete package. Then you have Open, which is a current affairs and features magazine. Then you have Open Source for You, which is a monthly magazine. Then you have Outlook, which is again based on current affairs, political topics, and so on. Then PC Quest is there. Now it is a technology publication since 1982. Then of course you have your Reader's Digest. It's a monthly general interest family magazine. So in Reader's Digest, you would have daily life stories, you have humor, you have workplace humor, you have segments where you say as kids see it and so on. You have a good crosswords there, and they, when we were small, we used to know that if you can solve the crosswords which are given to you in the Reader's Digest, then you have a very good sense of vocabulary. Of course, the quality has deteriorated in recent times. Then you have the Rock Street Journal. It covers the Indian independent music scene. So Raghu Dixit and your other rock scene gathering musicians would all get featured in the Rock Street Journal. It's almost like the Wall Street Journal for rock music. Then you have Century Asia Society. It's a monthly magazine, and it's a magazine which will cover your celebrity segments and your lifestyle magazine. It's almost like your Stardust. Then you have Sports Star, popular sports magazine. Tehelka is again a news weekly. Then you have Times Magazine Asia, which is a weekly magazine. Then you have Time Out. Now, Time Out has editions in Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore, and they give you guides towards the city's culture. Then you have Teen Pahar. Teen Pahar is bi-monthly and it's also bilingual. Then you of course have everyone's favorite, Verve and Vogue. It's published by Condé Nast. It's published in Mumbai. It's all about the high society. If you are a closet reader who loves to indulge in those frivolous high society gossips, then Vogue and Verve are the magazines for you. Then you have The Week. The Week again is published by the DSA Media House, and again that is a lifestyle magazine. Then you have the CEO magazine, that is the India CEO Profile and Business Interviews Monthly. Now, let's go to the business of news, the current trends in the Indian newspaper industry. Now, according to the Audit Bureau of Circulation, or ABC, it is a body, government body, which looks after the circulations, and you will identify, you'll get to know about the current trend. So this is the very recent publication. Now, in May 8, 2017, it's barely around 10 months old now. It highlights the growth of print media from 2.37 crore copies added in just the last 10 years. So, during the phase from 2013 to 2015, the Indian print media not only registered an absolute and significant growth in the number of publications, but it also led to a substantial increase in circulation. So there is, unlike other democracies in the West where circulation dropped among the board and the number of publications stagnated or decreased. So the reason being is this, that in India the digitalization has happened, no doubt, but due to the lack of electricity or due to the proper channeling of internet, there is not much of the consumption of digital media. So definitely print media is here to stay in a developing country like India. So according to the Audit Bureau of Circulation, 2.37 crores of copies has been added in the last 10 years. Now, during 2013 to 2015, the Indian print media not only registered an absolute and significant growth in the number of publications, but it also saw a substantial increase in the circulation. The reason for this is, unlike in major democracies in the West, where circulation dropped across the board, the number of publications has ridiculously gone down, or there is a stagnation. People have stopped buying magazines. Now, the drop in circulation of print media, specifically in Western countries, is driven by the stagnating or declining population and much faster growth of digital media. So very few people now have the tendency to buy magazines. So even now, we would rather engage with, say, editions of books. Say today, if I have to buy a book, now this is the trend which I am seeing in a cosmopolitan Indian city like Mumbai, where I have easy access to the internet. Now over here, if I have to buy a paperback format book or a hardcover book, a book might be very expensive for me. For example, the other day I was seeing a book on Iraq war, and that was coming to some 1500 rupees. Now the same book in the Kindle edition, it was showing me somewhere around 600 rupees. So obviously I would buy the Kindle edition than go for the thing. So again, you see, the other day I was trying to buy the Archie's and Jughead Digest. Now if I go online, I get the PDF almost free of cost. Now, or say if I have to buy an issue of Tintin, it's again expensive. So it comes to around 3,000 to 6,000 rupees. And even one single Flimsy Digest now costs somewhere around 250 rupees. But the same thing, I get it online for a much reduced price. So what's happening, the more the Western technology is seeping in, the more there is digitalization, globalization, which has of course taken a storm in the West. There is a decline in print media. Now people go for digital publications. So the trend has taken over in West, which is why there is a decline in the production and circulation. Whereas in contrast, in India, India's population and literacy are still increasing and internet penetration remains weak. So more and more education and literacy programs are being now created by the government. So people are going and buying the books. So the print media is flourishing and will continue to flourish in India as long as the internet does not take up the market. Now, we come to the important aspect of freedom of press. Now, as free press stands as one of the greatest interpreters between the government and the people. Now, to allow it to be fettered is to fetter over ourselves. So, freedom means absence of control, absence of interference or restriction. So, hence, the expression freedom of press means the right to print and publish without any interference from the state or any public authority. So, but this freedom, like other freedoms, cannot be absolute but is subject to well-known exceptions which acknowledge the public interest. So with freedom comes a great power and responsibility. The freedom of press basically implies the freedom the press has to publish a news, to publish an opinion without any control and interference. So basically, it's the right to publish and print without any interference of the state or the authority. But like all other freedoms, it cannot be absolute because you do have exceptions of control for the better interests of the public. So in India, the freedom of press is granted to you by Article 19(1)(a). So there is no specific provision ensuring freedom of press. The freedom of press in India is regarded as a species which will guarantee freedom. Now, the freedom of expression is a genius. So thus, being only a right flowing from the freedom of speech, the freedom of press in India stands on no higher footing than the freedom of speech of a citizen, and the press enjoys no privileges such as distinct from the freedom of the speech of a citizen. In India, freedom of the press is not absolute. Each citizen in India, according to the 19(1)(a) article, has been granted the freedom to express. So there is freedom of speech, but there is no extra privileges in the Indian Constitution. So freedom of press is just equated to freedom of speech with certain limitations. Now, what is Article 19(1)(a)? The Article 19(1)(a) in the Indian Constitution was incorporated in 1949. It says that all citizens have the right to freedom of speech and expression, to assemble peacefully without arms, to form association or unions, to move freely within the territory of India, to reside and settle in any part of the country, and to practice any profession or to carry an occupation, a trade or a business. So the Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution guarantees the rights of the citizen that they shall be able to express their speech freely, provided they adhere to the norms of 19(a), which says that they can also gather together without any arms and peacefully form associations or unions to express what they want to express. Then they can move freely, they can take any profession they want. Now, under Article 19 Act 2, the state may make a law imposing reasonable restrictions on the exercise to the right of freedom and expression. So under these, the expression used in Article 19(2) in the interest gives us a wide amplitude to the permissible law which can be enacted to impose reasonable restrictions on the right guaranteed by Article 19(1)(a). The reason behind it is that while it is necessary to maintain and preserve freedom of speech and expression in a democracy, it is also necessary to place some curbs on this freedom for the maintenance of social order. So Article 19(2), with each freedom comes a sense of duty. Now that duty has to be incorporated in writing, and this is what Article 19(2) of your Constitution does. That whenever necessary, in order to maintain and preserve freedom of speech and expression in a democracy, it is also necessary to place some curbs for the maintenance of social order. Now, with your rights comes your duties. So, if you are given the freedom of press, so it is also your duty to observe ethical codes. Now, with freedom of speech, you have the right to privacy. You have the right to grant privacy, to respect others. Then, access to information, people and spaces. It is something when a media gets an access to certain spaces, it also has to maintain the privacy as well as act as a watchdog. Then, access to gateways of information and distribution. They have to provide information for the public. Then with journalism privilege, you also have to follow certain journalistic ethics. Now, what is the code of ethics? Now, for a journalist has to follow certain codes of ethics. Now, the first and primal thing that the journalist has to see is he has to seek truth and report it. So, ethical journalism should be accurate and fair. Journalists should be honest and courageous in gathering, reporting, and interpreting information. So, when we started off with this class of journalism, we began that the work of a journalism is to unearth the truth, to know the truth, and also in certain cases be disappointed after knowing the truth. So, you should give accurate and fair information. The journalist should be honest and courageous. So you have many sections of government which indulges in red tapeism. So it is the work of the journalist to fearlessly gather the news and report it to people and provide the necessary information. Then the journalist needs to minimize harm. Now, ethical journalism treats sources, subjects, colleagues, and members of the public as human beings deserving respect. Now you need to act independently. The highest and primary obligation of ethical journalism is to serve the people and be accountable and transparent. So ethical journalism means taking responsibility for one's work and explaining to public if and when necessary as why a certain news was published. Now, the Press Council of India has given certain dictums to the journalists. Now, these are the codes of ethics or the moral codes and the moral values which every journalist should follow when they transmit the news to the public. Now, as the press is the primary instrument in the creation of public opinion, the journalist should regard their calling as a trust and be ready and willing to serve and guard the public interest. So, the press is considered to be the fourth pillar of democracy. It is considered to be the watchdog of democracy. So the primary function of the press is to provide information. The very fact that you are trusting someone to go and collect the information, and the very fact that you are publishing it implies that you are having the highest moral duty of bringing the truth to the people, and the people are believing what you are publishing. So trust is an important factor, and the journalist should be trustworthy enough and be willing to serve the people whenever required. Now, in the discharge of their duties, the journalist shall attach due value to fundamental human and social rights and shall also hold good faith and fair play in news reports and comments as essential public obligations. So, while discharging their duties, the journalist shall attach due fundamental, the human and social rights. So, the rights of the citizen should not be compromised, and with good faith and fair play, they should report the news and comment on them as essential professional obligations. Now, freedom in the honest collection and publication of news and facts and the right of fair comment and criticism are principles which every journalist should defend. So a journalist should have an honest collection of information. If and when necessary, the journalist should uh, collect and publish the facts in a manner that when the time comes to comment, fair comments can be given and fair criticism can also be taken. So every journalist should be held accountable for the news they publish. He should be able to defend why a certain news was published in that manner based on the fact that it was for the best of the public interest. Now, journalists shall observe due restraint in reports and comments which are likely to aggravate tensions likely to lead to violence. So, even if a journalist has a personal comment, the journalist should see that his opinion should be neutral, should be sensible enough so that it does not cause an unnecessary disruption in the normal ethos of the country. So, say a journalist comment on a particular issue should not aggravate tensions and lead to violence. For example, in the northeastern part of India, the journalists have no journalist etiquette at all. So, there was this incident where the journalist started recording photos of girls who were wearing skirts, and they were saying that this is against the ethos of the northeastern society and so on and forth. So what is happening is a kind of violence is being created in the society. The journalist is being cornered and being accused of inflicting violence in the society. Now, journalists shall endeavor to ensure that the information is factually correct. So, take the death of Sri Devi. So there were the journalists who had already propagated that Sri Devi died of heart disease. Now, it was not proven factually. The autopsy report had not come by then. It was wrong of the journalist to say she died of heart disease because, as her brother-in-law claims, Sri Devi never had any heart disease history. So your facts should be correct, and only after the autopsy was done was it revealed that she died of accidental drowning. So no fact shall be distorted and no essential fact should be suppressed. Now this is a good thing that in spite of the infactual and baseless allegation that she died of heart disease, they didn't stop there. They went on to correct it and say that she has actually died of accidental drowning. Now some even went to the extent of showing how she drowned in a bathtub and so on, but no information known to be false or believed to be true shall be published. Then, the responsibility shall be assumed for all information and comment published. So, if the responsibility is declaimed, they shall be explicitly stated beforehand. So, no responsibility shall be assumed for all information and comment published. So, if responsibility is disclaimed, if you are not taking the responsibility for a particular news piece, then you should proclaim it beforehand. Unconfirmed news shall be identified and treated as such. So if you do not know the source of your news, the original source of your news, you will do it the same manner. Then, confidence shall always be respected and professional secrecy preserved, but it shall not be regarded as a breach of the code if the source of information is disclosed in matters coming up before the press or courts of law. So, confidence should always be respected. Now, recently you saw that in the Karti Chidambaram case, the NDTV reporters have also interviewed Indrani Mukherjee. Now, confidentiality should be respected and professional secrecy preserved. So, there, Indrani has said that I cannot divulge certain details because this will be presented in the court. But the reporter is still being persistent in asking her questions. Now, this is wrong in certain cases because if that is a part of the judicial confidential agreement, then it's a breach. However, if that is going to be disclosed by the courts of law, then it is not considered as a breach by the press council. Then any report found to be inaccurate and any comment based on inaccurate report shall be voluntarily rectified. So, there was this news in the papers which said that L.K. Advani has died, and later on they went up with the clarification that it was not L.K. Advani who had died, but it was his wife who had passed away. So, any report found to be inaccurate and any comment based on inaccurate report shall be voluntarily rectified. So, you always find in the newspapers or in the news channel the disclaimer that the editor or the chief is seeking an apology, public apology for the wrong news which got published. Now, it shall be obligatory to give fair publicity to a correction or contradiction when a report is published false or inaccurate in materials particular. So if the report is found to be published inaccurately, or if the report is found to be false, then the onus lies on the reporter to directly go and rectify the mistake. Then, all persons engaged in the gathering, transmission, and dissemination of news and comments thereon shall seek to maintain public confidence in the integrity and dignity of their profession. So, anyone who is in the process of gathering news, who is in the process of transmission of news, he should take care that he shall seek to maintain public confidence in the integrity and dignity of the profession. So only they shall assign and accept only such tasks as are compatible with this integrity and dignity, and they shall guard it against the exploitation of their status. So when Jayalalitha was admitted in the Apollo hospitals, so certain groups of media came up with the report that Jayalalitha was killed, had passed away beforehand, and her death was issued at a later date. Then again there were reports of Sasikala and the aides who were accused of poisoning Jayalalitha. Then again there were reports in media where even the nurses and others have been shown to say that Jayalalitha was in a good state and her death was sudden. Then you have reporters who reported that Jayalalitha's health was critically deteriorating and ECMO was the last option, which was also tried on her, but she gave up. So all of these news of these kind of high political cases where if you proclaim the death, if it is a wrong report, if you have limited access, then it is fair enough to incite violence in the country. Now, this is considered to be a news which is of a high profile case. So it was very essential for the reporters to take on the precautionary measures and only then release the news. So every chief of the news bureau has the power and has the responsibility to assign reporters who are able to handle to the test of time, who are able to handle the situation, and who are compatible with enough integrity and dignity, and they shall safeguard it to the hill. So they will safeguard the journalistic ethos to the hill. So there is nothing so unworthy as the acceptance or demand of a bribe or inducement for the exercise by the journalist of his power to give or to deny publicity to news or comments. Now there were various sting operations during the state scandals. Say in Assam we had the Assam Public Service Commission state scandals. So it was openly found that people were actually paying a huge amount of bribe to procure the jobs. Now this was going on for the period of say the past 6 to 7 years, when meritorious students were not cracking the civil services. And the reason being that even though people were aware, even the journalists were aware of the misdoings, they were not willingly publishing it as news. Why? Probably they might have also given bribe, or they might have accepted bribe. They might have given bribe so that the family members get the jobs, and they might have also accepted bribes not to publish the news. So this is a breach of the code of conduct given to journalists. So now there is nothing so unworthy as the acceptance or demand of a bribe or inducement for the exercise by a journalist of his power to give or to deny publicity to the news or comment. Then you have the 12th ethic, that the carrying on of personal controversies in the press where no public issues is involved is undesirable and derogatory to the dignity of the profession. So there was this the celebrity gossips where you have yellow journalism being practiced, where there is a huge amount of unverified news which is being published. So these are considered as breach to the person's right of privacy, as well as these are considered to be unverified and just not desirable to the dignity of the profession. So the very incident where we have a news where a journalist goes and clicks pictures of women who are buying a drink and they see it splash all across the paper on grounds of loose morals. So that kind of reporting is a hindrance because firstly, there is nothing wrong if a woman wants to drink, if a woman is responsible enough to drink and take care of herself and the family, or if the family members get together for a merriment or enjoyment, it is totally on her as long as she is safe, as long as she's paying for her drink or her spouse is buying the drink and so on. So there is no degradation of the ethical values as such. And in many communities, like in the Christian community, we get wine during our communions, or in the southern northeastern societies, making wine is a culture of the society. So it's wrong on the part of the reporters to go and comment. So basically, according to the journalistic code of conduct, it should be avoided in the press where any undesirable and derogatory news should not be published, where there is a danger to the dignity of the profession. Now, it is unprofessional to give currency in the press to rumor or gossip affecting the private life of individuals. Even verifiable news affecting individuals shall not be published unless public interest demands its publication. So when Karan Johar's movie was being released, Ae Dil Hai Mushkil, and I think Ajay Devgan's Shivai was being released, it seems report was there in the media that KRK, some Kamal Khan or someone, had been paid a bribe so that he can publish a false news and malign Ajay Devgan's Shivai. Now, even though we know that a movie of Dharma production will fare much better than Ajay Devgan's small scale movie, yet it should not be published. Why? Because it is nothing of the public's interest. The public will simply go watch the movie and come back. It is not of the journalist to say which movie is good, which movie is bad before its release. So there was a massive spate in the media itself as to why that news got published in the first place. So all of these should be avoided. Now, in obtaining news or pictures, the reporters and press photographers shall do nothing that will cause pain or humiliation to the innocent, to the bereaved, or otherwise distressed persons. In certain media, you have the tagline, सनसनी खबरें, तेज खबरें, आज की तेज खबरें. Now what they do is, if there is a crash, if there is an accident, if a major's wife has lost her husband, they go and ask, how are you feeling now? How are you going to cope? Now that is not necessary. You need to give the person a grieving time. You need to respect the person's right to privacy. You need to respect the person's own uh, individual's right, where his personal life is not there out in the public. So all of these should be clearly maintained. So in other words, the Press Council sees that the press should be such that it should gain the interest of the public, it should discharge its duties in good faith so that the integrity is not compromised, the dignity of the profession is not compromised in any way. It should always provide the truth. No inaccurate or distorted versions of the truth should be given to the public. Then the responsibility of the journalist lies in defending what he has published. Then they should always respect the confidential information. Any incorrect or inaccurate information which has been published, they should go and apologize for it in the forefront. They will not indulge in any activities which breaches the rights and dignity of a journalist, and moreover, they will not do anything that will aggravate the cause of pain or distress in case of a public individual. So, with this, we come to the end of our presentation. Thank you.